Hey y'all, Biohack here. A couple weeks ago, I did a video talking about my strategy for doing champion training events and how you can essentially prepare ahead of time a bunch of champions that are leveled up and ready to go so that you can dump a bunch of brews in them in order to achieve those events with basically no energy spend. And that is one of the best ways to get legendary books as a free-to-play or a low-spend player. Well, we've got another event that's going on that works very similar to the champ training event, but it has some key differences. So I wanted to do that same analysis here, talk about what kind of resources you would need to dump into that event. That is the Path of Light event. How many brews you would need to unlock the legendary books or the other rewards, and how the brewing strategy changes between this event and the typical champ training event. The short version of this video is that I think the Path of Light event is pretty decent, if not maybe slightly better than the average champ training event. However, it comes with the caveat that it's a much bigger investment. But we'll talk about that a little bit as we jump into it. So if that's something you're interested in, stick around and we'll jump into the spreadsheet. All right, so this is the same spreadsheet I made for my last video, but it's been adapted for the Path of Light event. So I'm going to break it down for you real quick so we can go over the key differences between this one and the last one. But essentially what we have here is for the number of brews you add to a champion, what level do you get for that number of brews? And then how many points do you get for adding an extra brew on top of the one you previously added? So up here we have the number of points that you get for the events. And then here's levels. So essentially here we have 9 times 2 is 18 points for one brew into a rank 1 champion. Okay, so how does this differ from the typical champ training event? Well, there's one major difference, and that is in this event you get 3 points per level on a rank 2 champion versus a traditional champ training event where you get 1 point for both a rank 1 and a rank 2 champion. And this actually plays out across the entire event. So if we look at, say, a rank 2 champion on this Path of Light event, you get 3 points per level. Versus a rank 6 champion, you get 18 points per level. So you get 6 times more experience or more points per level for a rank 6 versus a rank 2. If we go back, oh, I have this one really tiny. Hold on, let's make it a little bigger. Oh, there we go. The main thing I want you to see is right here. You get a 1 point for a level on a rank 2, and you get 8 points for a level on a rank 6 during your typical champ training. You also get 2 points for a rank 3 versus 1 point for a rank 2. This means you get double the points for a rank 3 versus a rank 2 on your typical training, but here it's 3 points versus 4 points. So what does this mean? This means that the difference between putting brews into a 2-star champion in a traditional event versus 3-star champion in a traditional event is much smaller. And that actually manifests if we look at the numbers. What we see here is that putting a single brew into a rank 2 champion gives you 30 points, whereas putting your second brew into a rank 3 champion only gives you 20 points. Unlike in the other one where you got 10 points for the first level in a rank 2 and 10 points for the second level in a rank 3, or the second brew in a rank 3. Okay, so moral of the story is the main takeaway of everything I just said is that putting brews into rank 2 champions is much better in this event than it is during the other events. So that's kind of our new baseline. In fact, our new baseline is actually, I think, going to be needed to adjust down, actually, so that the best thing we do is not putting one brew in a 2-star champion, because that's actually pretty good for this event. It really depends on how you've prepared your accounts going into events on this in terms of what the most efficient thing to do with your brews is. It depends on how much food you have. Like if you have a ton of 6-star champions that are no levels and ready to just eat brews, then you're going to be able to get a lot of points really efficiently, whereas if you don't. But the main takeaway here is that now putting points into 2-star champions is pretty good. And basically, I think our new baseline for what is an acceptable amount of points you want to get per brew is now going to be 20, which is putting 2 brews into a rank 3 champion. So, that is kind of, like I said, it depends on how you set up your account, but that gives you a good estimate to see how many brews you would need to get the different rewards in this particular event versus a champ training event. Okay, so we're saying we're going to get 20 points per level for our brew. That's going to be our baseline, which should be relatively easy to do. We're going to make sure we put 1 brew into our 2-star champions. We're going to put 2 brews into our 3-star. We're going to put 4 into our 4-star. We're going to put 8 into our 5-star, and our 6-star champions, we're going to put 10 brews. Also notice that each rank is worth 18 points on a 6-star. So even if you're only getting 1 level per brew, you could still go ahead and put that in, put more brews into a 6-star champion as long as you're getting 1 level per brew, and it's not that much worse than just putting two brews into a rank 3. Also, you get 8 points for putting 1 brew into a 1-star champion. So if you're willing to accept a baseline of 18, that can be a pretty good option. But I'm going to use a baseline of 20 because I think that's pretty reasonable for where I am on my account. So, then we need to think about, like, okay, what do legendary books, because that's usually what we're thinking about in terms of this event. This event's a little more complicated, but here, let's actually jump back into the event real quick. Hold on, let me pull it up. Oh, wait, no, there it is. Cool. Okay, so if we look at the traditional champ training event, we literally had one just finished. This is a champ training tournament, but it's not actually that different than the normal champ training events. And, oh, you can't see the point requirement, but I'll just tell you, the point requirement for this legendary book was 10,000 points. Now, that's actually fairly low. I would say they typically range anywhere from about 10,000 to 14,000 points. So, yeah, and again, like, you get a bunch of other rewards along the way as well. I think in this one, actually, honestly, this champ training event was overall, like, really good. We also got a 6-star Chaos Ore, which is really nice for, I think, 8,100 points, and got core hammers and other things too. But this gives us a good baseline of what, like, a really good champ training event is. 10,000 points, and as we saw in the spreadsheet just a second ago, let me pull it back up, we're expecting to get about 10 points per brew that we put in. So, what does that mean? 1,000 brews gets you a legendary book in the best case scenario, and if we're looking at an event that's about 14,000 points, you're looking at about 1,400 brews, easy math, right, to get a legendary book in the typical champ training event, which is one of the best ways to get legendary books as a free-to-play, low-spend player, like I mentioned earlier. And I think you should definitely put a lot of effort into focusing on preparing for these events so that you can get legendary books if you're at all in a position where you need them, which most players in the game are, unless you're spending money. Okay, so how does that compare to the Path of Light? Let's jump back over to the Path of Light here. It's a little more complicated because the Path of Light is kind of a mess. We have all of these different paths that we need to go through, and you need keys to unlock the paths. So if we look at this, if we think about this relative to a champ training event where we're thinking about trying to get the legendary books, what's the story here? Well, the first thing we know is that we need to get 2 keys in order to unlock the option, the paths, to get the 2 legendary books. We also see that both the keys are on the side paths here. So we need to go down this way to get this one, need to go down this way to get this one, and then we need to come through the middle, unlock this. We get a void shard, which is really important to note because I think that's going to be a major deciding factor when we're evaluating this event. And then we get 2 legendary books for 10,000 points each. So let's go back into our spreadsheet here. We've got our Path of Light, and we said before, in a typical champ training, we need 1,000 brews, anywhere from 1,000 to 1,400 brews to get a legendary book. We're getting we're going to get 20 points per brew. Now, I want to clarify, this is like worst case scenario when I say 20 points per brew. The average is significantly better than this. What the overall average will work out to depends on which rank champions you use. We're going to say a minimum of 20, but if we're doing like a 6-star champion up to rank 10, we're actually averaging somewhere closer to like 50 points per brew because of these first levels that give out a ton. Same thing with rank 5s where we're getting like 45 points per brew. But we're saying, okay, worst case scenario, I'm going to set 20 points per brew. If we add up what the total number of points we need to get those 2 legendary books, what we come to is about 11,650 for the left side, 9,650 for the right side. The center is 28,600, and the big total final number is just under 50,000 points to get the 2 legendary books as well as all the other rewards in the path. Okay, so 20 points each. 50,000 points total. We're going to need 5,000, we're going to need 2,500 brews to completely max this out, doing nothing else but just brewing champions to get all the points we need for the event. And that's going to work out to about 1,250 brews per legendary book. Now, I just told you a minute ago that the really good champ training event we had required 1,000 brews to get a legendary book. Some of the bad ones require 1,400 brews to get a legendary book. So all in all, the truth is that 1,250 brews to get to get a legendary book on average is actually pretty good. It's right in line with what we would expect from a normal champ training event. The big caveat here is that you need basically to do the whole thing twice in one go, and so it requires a lot bigger of an initial investment, but it is in line with the other events in terms of legendary brews. However, it does have a couple of other advantages that I think might actually push you more in favor of Path of Light over your average champ training event. And that is that void shard that we already mentioned. This is a really nice reward, and it's hard to get void shards from things like a champ training event. Like this stuff, like the Chaos Ore, I love this. 6-star Chaos Ore is great. 5-star Chaos Ore, or 6-star Epic Chaos Ore, not as good, but it's still not bad. But that's typical for champ training events. Like I already showed you a minute ago, we had the same thing in this event. So if we just multiplied this whole event times 2, it would probably be a little bit better than the Path of Light, because we'd be getting 20 core hammers instead of the 10 we get in the Path of Light. We'd be getting 2 6-star legendary Chaos Ores instead of 1 legendary and 1 epic. But that being said, the major thing we are not going to get in that traditional event is, of course, this void shard. So I think that does make a compelling case for the Path of Light. The other nice thing about the Path of Light is that you can also get points from getting artifacts. Now, this is a much lesser source of points unless you're going really hard for dungeons. You're probably not going to make, most of the points by doing the dungeon divers. But odds are there's almost no way you're going to go a whole week without, or how long is this event? 5 days, 4 days? How much time do we have? 3 days. 3 days, 11 hours. So I guess probably 4 days total. There's no way you're going to go this whole event without getting at least some points from the artifact grinding, right? From the dungeons and that kind of thing. And so that's going to mean that you're going to reduce that brew requirement even more. So even though it says you need 50,000 points, because you're probably going to get, 5,000 points, maybe. It depends on how much dungeons you do. From the traditional just dungeon farming, that's going to reduce the number of brews. And then you're also going to get the void shard. So what is the TLDR? What is the conclusion of this whole video? I think this event is actually pretty decent, honestly. I think if you can do it, it is worth going for these rewards by brewing champions and using everything you've stocked up for a champ training event to get the 2 legendary books versus doing a traditional champ training event. But there's caveats to that too. We just had a champ training event. Most people probably just used up all their resources, myself included. There's no way I'm going to do this on my free-to-play account. My free-to-play account did just get the legendary book from the champ training event, and that was great. But there's no way I can possibly get the 50,000 points that are needed here. I just don't have enough brews, and I don't have enough champions that are ready to even accept the brews on my free-to-play account. On my main account, I probably actually can. I can. There's another thing that's interesting about this event too, is we have the summon rush going on, and I am not going to summon any shards during this 10x. I mean, maybe if you need some of the 10x champions, I think Helicath's probably pretty good. Maybe you'll get some of this, but I'm probably going to pull 200 mystery shards to pick up this Mortal Soulstone here. And what that's going to do is it's going to give me a lot of 2-star champions I can drop like a brew into to help get some points. So that can help refresh your coffers. And the nice thing about this event, because putting brews into 2-star champions is actually pretty good, it means you can get a jump start on preparing the next round of rank 3 champions that you want for the future champ training event, so that, you know, all of your 2-stars are going to be halfway leveled, so you can just finish them off over the next period of time until the next champ training event, get them up to 3 stars and have them fresh and ready to go to accept brews for that event, which is good because you don't typically want to put brews into 2 stars during that event, so you don't need to save 2 stars or anything like that. You would anyway because of inventory issues. But it's nice because those brews essentially aren't wasted. Like, you're actually going to get the XP out of that because you'll need to level the 2 stars less in the future. So that's kind of a nice additional bonus to this as well. In terms of my main account, I think I am going to try and go for this Path of Light event, but I'm not going to go for the legendary books. That's because there's another reward here, which is this Eternal Soulstone. At this point in my account, I don't need legendary books, to be honest. Like, I have all the PvE content done except for Hard Fire Knight 10, and that's not a book issue. I have all the champions I need for PvP fully booked. I just don't need legendary books at this point on my account. I've never bought one in my whole life, but I just don't really need them because I get so many from everything else and doing all these events and preparing everything around these events. So I'm good on that, but I do really want this Eternal Soulstone. Since Eternal Soulstone is around 35,000 points, I think it's a little over 35,000. Which means I'm going to have to drop, you know, 1,500 brews-ish. It's not going to actually be that many. It's going to be significantly less. But in theory, that's what I'd have to put to get this Eternal Soulstone. And I think it is going to be worth it. I'm going to try and brew up all the 2 stars I have on my account so I can get them ready, because I just burned them all, or burned all my 3 stars and cleared out my account in terms of food for the last event. So now I'm going to just basically get all the 2 stars ready to go for this one. And I'm going to try and pick up that Eternal Soulstone. This is obviously not something you can typically get from a champ training event, but it's pretty good. So anyway, I hope you found this video useful. I hope it gave you some insight into the quality of this event relative to the typical champ training and how you might want to go about it. If you like this video, please subscribe to the channel. I do a bunch of videos all the time. Definitely go check out that other one on how to prepare for champ training events and how to basically utilize your brews to get as many free legendary books as you can. This is one of the most accessible ways to get legendary books, and I think far too many people are not paying attention to it and don't realize how important it is for account progression to prepare for these champ training events, because that is one of the most reliable ways, especially if you are not farming Nightmare Clan Boss, to get legendary books. So I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.